10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 277. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 277 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. As always, thank you for joining us yet again for another episode. Of course, we are starting a brand new series this month. But before we jump in, just wanted to make sure you know you can get the PDF to this episode and every episode that we've ever done by signing up for our Patreon page. We are a listener-supported podcast, which means that we do not have any advertisements on the show, and instead we rely on listeners just like you that tune in each and every week to keep the show coming at you week in and week out in high quality. In return for your support of the show, as I already mentioned, you get the materials from all of these episodes, including PDFs and audio recordings, all sorts of great stuff over there, including discounts to our products for Patreon members only. So you can find out how to support us and pledge your monthly donation by going to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, clicking on one of the Patreon banners, get yourself signed up, and you get instant access to all of that stuff. We've got over 350 amazing members over there, and I just want to say thanks to everybody over there who's been supporting the show and keeping things moving. And quick shout out to our new $3 patrons. Thank you to Mark and Vincent. Thank you for joining the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson family. So again, 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, get yourself signed up today. All right, so this month we are going to talk about pentatonics, and we're not going to talk about like basic pentatonic stuff. We've talked about that before. We have talked about pentatonics on this show, both major and minor. So we're not going to talk about patterns because you can so easily just, go onto Google and look up pentatonic patterns and find things that will keep you busy for the rest of your life. So we're not going to necessarily talk about that. Instead, we're going to talk about how to use pentatonics in a creative way by thinking about superimposing different pentatonics over different chords to give you some brand new sounds. Just another tool to add to your toolbox to get that variety of different sounds in your playing. So what we're going to do, as we often do on the show, is explore 3 different chord qualities: minor 7, dominant 7, major 7. And we're going to talk about how you can approach thinking about pentatonic shapes and what pentatonic shapes you can use over each chord. So basically, we're taking a 2-5-1 and we're going to talk about each chord. Obviously, this will be of benefit to you outside of a 2-5-1 progression, pretty much anywhere you see these chords. But these are the 3 most common chords in the jazz language. So again, like we often do on the show, we're going to talk about the different sounds. So let's do a really, really quick review on what a pentatonic scale is for about 30 seconds here. So remember, a major pentatonic is 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 in the major scale. Now, if we go to the relative minor, and in a minor key, if we play 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, we get a minor pentatonic shape, which is actually the same collection of notes, just starting on a different root. What we are going to do in this series is exclusively talk about major pentatonic shapes. But remember, you can convert that into a minor pentatonic by just simply changing the root. So if you're playing a C major pentatonic, that is the exact same collection of notes as an A minor pentatonic. All right, but we're only going to talk about majors just to simplify and only use one quality of a pentatonic scale throughout this series. So today we're going to talk about the minor 7th chord, all right? And we're going to talk about a couple of different ways, a couple of different pentatonic scales that we can use over the minor 7th chord to give us some different sounds. So be sure to pull out your PDF worksheet as we go through this so you can actually see it in action. You get that visual cue of what we are talking about. And let's talk about the first line on the PDF, which is example number 1. So if we were to take a concert C minor 7 chord and figure out 3 different pentatonic shapes that we can use over this, let's start with the first one. So the first one is going to be a major pentatonic based off of the third. So this would be an E flat major pentatonic over the C minor 7 chord, and it sounds like this. Now, of course, as I mentioned at the top of the podcast, this is the same scale as the C minor pentatonic. So this might be something that a lot of you are using already. This is probably the most basic sound you can get over a minor 7th chord. We're just labeling it as E flat major and playing it as E flat major simply because we're talking about major pentatonics, and you'll see why when we talk about some of the other ones. All right, so the next one is going to be a major pentatonic based off of the 4th on a C minor 7 chord, a concert C minor 7 chord. So if we take that C minor 7 chord, we go up to the 4th, we get concert F, and we're going to play a major pentatonic over that. So here is concert F major over a concert C minor chord. So you can hear that one is a lot more interesting, right? Because we are now using a completely different collection of notes. Some of them do overlap, but let's investigate with that F major pentatonic what notes we're actually playing over a C minor chord. So if we start on F, we're playing the 4th. If we go up to G, we are playing the 5th. Nothing that crazy yet. But when we get to the 3rd note of that F major pentatonic, now we're playing the 6th over the C minor chord, which is a really interesting note. That's really where kind of the money is on this particular pentatonic over this particular chord, is that 6th. That gives us a really interesting sound that's not present in that E flat major pentatonic. Going up to the next note, now we have C, which is obviously the root. And then we have D, which is the 9th. So if you think about these notes over a C minor 7 chord, you get 4, 5, 6, 1, 9. So a very interesting sound there. All right, let's go on to the 3rd example, which is going to be based off of the 7th, the flat 7. So over a C minor 7 chord, we're going to use a B flat major pentatonic, and it sounds like this. Now, what you're going to notice about this one is that a lot of this we've seen before, pretty much all of it, actually. But it's not about what notes overlap. It's about thinking in a particular shape to get a particular sound over the top of this chord. So again, if we investigate the notes, the first note of the B flat major pentatonic is the flat 7. And then we get the root. Then we get the 9th, then we get the 4, and then we get the 5. So again, it really overlaps with that E flat major pentatonic, the only difference being that we get the 9th in there. But it is these subtle differences that make this really, really interesting. So if you're ever at a lack of what to play over a minor chord, and you feel like your material is just getting old and stale and you're playing the same stuff over and over again, try thinking about one of these different shapes. And what it should do is inject a little bit of freshness into your playing. It'll just give you a different way to think about what you're doing, what you're playing over the top of that. And that will result in some new thoughts, some new approaches, and finally, some new sounds. So to wrap up the episode here, let's do a quick little 30-second demonstration using each one of these. So what you're going to hear is you're going to hear me playing using that E-flat pentatonic for about 30 seconds. Then the recording will stop. I'll switch over to using that F major pentatonic over the C minor chord. The recording will stop, and then you will hear me using the pentatonic based off of B flat on that C minor 7 chord. So you'll get to hear all of these different shapes back to back, and you can kind of decide whether you like one better than the other or how you want to approach practicing over this. But what I'm going to do is I just picked a backing track that just stays on C minor 7 forever. And I think that's a great way to start working on this. So you could find one of those backing tracks and do it yourself. All right. So here is the 3 iterations, the 3 different shapes: E flat major, F major, and finally B flat major over this. So you can really hear the different sounds you can get depending on what shape you're using. And the real beauty becomes when you can freely switch in between these 3 shapes sort of in the same statement. And that's what I'm going to do at the very end of the episode, spend another 30 seconds or so just kind of freely moving between the 3 shapes, okay? If you have any questions on this, please get in touch with me. You can do that by going to the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Community Facebook group, or you can get in touch with me at 10minutejazzlesson@gmail.com. Let me know if there's any confusion about what I'm talking about. Hopefully I explained it all right. But what I would start by doing is just getting used to the sound of these 3 different shapes and how they differ from each other, and start to decide which one you personally prefer the most, because that's probably going to be the one that you're going to want to use when you start to actually implement some of this stuff in your playing. Go with your ears, right? Whatever one sounds best to you, use that one. Okay, that does it for this episode. Remember, you can get the PDF by going to 10minutejazzlesson.com, clicking on one of the Patreon banners. Get yourself signed up for your monthly donation, and you will get instant access to everything that we've ever done. Hope you're all having a great week out there. Next week, we're going to talk about dominant chords, and we're going to go non-diatonic, which is going to be kind of fun. So stay safe and healthy as always, and we will talk to you soon. Have a good weekend, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.